Hello everyone. So we're going to be doing this implementation of prefabs. And what a prefab is, essentially, is having a game object be kind of used, or it could be used in the context of spawning it back into the game itself when it is running. Because the thing about objects that are not prefabs is that when they are, in the scene or when the game is running, what happens is, excuse me for a moment. Oh man, hold on. Okay, so what happens is these enemies right here, they only spawn back in when the game is kind of restarted. So the intention here for prefabs is to have a specific game object be used to spawn back in when the game is running. So to actually implement this, first, we're going to have a game object, right? Like let's say, for example, player. And since I already did it for enemy, we just drag player onto a project view, just the tab below here, right? And let's just for an example, but we do the same thing for this object. And what we're trying to achieve here is to have player or enemy be used so that they can spawn back in to the game. So to actually, implement that, we can create a controller script. Now, this is going to be an empty game object. So this empty game object is just going to be a controller. Controller. Okay. So for this empty game object, what it's going to do is it's going to take an enemy right here. And when we give it enemy, it's going to, spawn enemy based on the script it has. So we're just going to make a script here that allows enemy to kind of spawn in accordingly. So let's just put them in a good position here so they don't like clip through any walls. So right here is fine, right? So enemy is gonna spawn. Actually, I think we could just have this at 0, 0. They're not gonna spawn strictly on the controller. They're gonna spawn based on what coordinates we pass down, so and where they will spawn. So we're gonna make a script, and it's gonna be called scene controller. So we'll just make the script here within these assets here. And this video also is an extension of the other videos I've been making. So right now, the whole summary here for enemy is that they're capable of moving on their own accord based off of this AI movement script. So if they're alive, they can translate along a specific place with a sphere casted array that allows them to kind of move in any direction they choose randomly accordingly. That has to be one of the weirdest sentences I ever expressed, but that's how it follows. And this is also another component of enemy, which if it does get hit, then it kind of does a little animation, which it falls to the ground and gets destroys. Okay, so for this script here, we're just gonna call it scene controller. So this scene controller right here is gonna spawn this enemy prefab. That's what we want. So let's just open in this window here. So we're gonna make something unique here, which is this is gonna be a serialized field. And if you don't know what a serialized field is, because I don't know much about it to be honest, other than in this context, it's gonna be a link to the game object in the prefab. In this context, the game object is the empty game object. And the prefab is that enemy object in which we saw. So we're just going to say private, and we're just going to say game object, and we're just going to say enemy prefab. So we're going to make another game object called just enemy. And this enemy is going to take what this has. So it's like, for example, let me just open up Paint or something, right? So it's gonna, if we place, like, for example, this is our enemy, right? And we want them to be placed into a box. So what we want to do for this enemy is to actually have them placed where the serialized field is, or the enemy prefab, so that this other box can actually take in, what's in here and actually kind of put it within the scene itself to actually have, this object here, right? Let me just like make a little scene, right? Let's just make a scene here and, oh my gosh. Okay. There we go. Have this object kind of spawn within the scene, right? We could just say, yeah, this object here, right? And this is just serialize field, right? It's taking in what's in the prefab set. Like, let's just say this is just a set of prefabs, right? And this is going to be our enemy, right? This is enemy. Enemy. And we just pass that down onto the serialized field. Then we're going to have just some game object. And I should do this, to be honest. So we see this enemy right here, right? So from this set of prefabs, they're going to be transferred onto the serialized field, and they're going to be taken into the game object, and this game object is going to have them spawn into the scene. So this is our intention here, to have this game object take in the enemy prefab and to make them spawn into the scene. So to actually achieve this, it hinges on the instantiation method, just instantiate. And right here, we're going to take the enemy prefab. So what we're doing, right, is having now this enemy kind of be instantiated onto the scene. So just going to say that. Then enemy, what we want them to do is spawn at a specific position. So every game object has this property called transform position. And we're just going to pass down the coordinates of where they will spawn within the scene. So I'm just going to pick 0, 3, 0 here, and they'll spawn accordingly. So 0, 3, 0, right? So this is just saying that, they spawn at 0, 3, 0. So now we're just going to have them also spawn at a specific angle. So what that means is we're just going to say float angle, and it's going to be of a specific random range. Now this is optional. You don't have to do this, but we kind of want our enemy to be, not always looking in the same direction in which they spawn. Maybe they want to look in some other different direction, right? So we're just going to say angle. Actually, I think it's transform. Rotate. And they're going to just be spawning. I think no, it's not that. Okay. Unless, is it this? I just want to be cautious here. No. Okay. So yeah, it's just gonna have our enemy kind of be spawning, looking in some direction when they do spawn. So the essential idea of prefabs is we have this game object that we pass down from. We could even make another kind of connection here. So let's just say this is the hierarchy view, right? Hierarchy, and this is the project, right? So we have a game object within the hierarchy, right? And this is still our enemy, right? So we pass down enemy onto the prefabs, or the project view. Then within the script itself, let's just say script scene controller. So within the scene controller, it takes in the enemy, the link between the enemy and the game object, kind of acting as a placeholder so that this game object can actually take in the prefab field and game object actually instantiating this enemy onto the scene by using that script. So I think the script is complete here. We don't have to do anything for void start, but let's close this here and let's run this here. Okay, I'm not too sure how long this is going to take. I'll pause just in case if it takes a little longer. Okay, no, it doesn't. Okay, so we have this empty game object, right? So now we're going to add scene controller onto it. So we see that the enemy prefab is empty. It's like an open slot. So this is where we're going to do this, right? We're going to pass down the enemy game object, or now that is a prefab, onto the serialized field. So we just pass this down onto, oh, yeah, I almost made a mistake. Okay, so we pass this onto here. And now everything's complete. What we could just do here is just run the game. And it's not going to be a perfect implementation, but it's going to have it so that this enemy right here, right? Oh my goodness. Hold on, hold on. Okay, I think I know what I did wrong. Um, Obviously that wasn't supposed to happen. Let me just correct that. Okay, I know what I did wrong. So within the scene controller script, right? It's going to spawn an infinite amount um, of prefabs. The reason for this is because enemy has to equal null. So I made a mistake here, which was that this should only spawn more of itself when it is empty, not more and more and more, or else we're just going to get an influx of enemy game objects. So that was a little cursed, but let me actually now run this here, see whether what I did was done accordingly. Let's see here. Whoops. Is this okay? Let me see. This might take a little. Okay. So now that it's based on condition that when this enemy is here, it's not going to spawn more, right? So now it's only going to spawn one. And when I hit this enemy, it's going to spawn back again, like so. If I hit it again, it spawns back in, hit it again. So only on the condition of whether it is null. If it's an empty game object, then it'll kind of insert the prefab into the scene again. So this is just an implementation of prefabs, and hopefully this does cover some grounds for the idea itself. Okay, goodbye.